If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another live stream episode of the show. I really appreciate you being here. On May 19th of 2024, last year, of course, tonight's guest and her husband decided to head out into the woods in Claiborne County in Tennessee to see if they couldn't find a Sasquatch. They'd never seen a Sasquatch before, and they're hoping this would be the night to do it. So they went out and they tried to spotlight various areas in the woods there, hoping for the best. Well, what happened was a lot different than what they had hoped for, to say the least. I can't do it any justice talking about it, so let's bring tonight's guest in here so we can have her do that. Tonight's guest wishes to remain anonymous also. With that in mind, I'm just going to call her Debra tonight. Debra, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Vic.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for your time and thanks for being here. Debra, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I'm a country girl. I've spent my whole life in Southeast Kentucky, Northeast Tennessee. I grew up spending many nights coon hunting with my walker dogs and blue tick hounds. I'm an avid huntress. I squirrel hunt, deer hunt. I fish. I can bring it to the boys just as hard as they can bring it in. That's just how I was raised. And I love it down here in the South. It's beautiful.
That is a beautiful part of the country. It definitely is. How much time over the years have you spent in the woods there, Debra, coon hunting, doing other things?
Almost my whole life. The better part of at least 30 years. Ever since I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was just brought up in the mountains with guns, fishing, hunting, tracking, you name it, I've did it.
Yeah, that is a lot of time in the woods. Do you still go out into the woods alone?
Yeah, I do. But I'm always carrying my sidearm with me. I carry my .45 Springfield. We do have black bear population in the area and quite a large coyote population, so safety is always paramount.
Oh, it definitely is. But how much faith do you have in that .45 Springfield to protect you from what you saw that night?
Not much at all.
Yeah, it's good you realize that. You had your encounter on your husband's birthday weekend in a very rural place. Please tell us about what you had planned for his birthday weekend there in the place where this all happened.
Well, it was down a little place called Gap Creek. We had his birthday was on the 14th, so it was a weekend. We was off work, and he's a cryptid freak. He's always wanted to see Sasquatch, and I've got an open mind. You know, I believe that there are things out there that we can't explain. I've never seen one. He's never seen one, so we thought we'd go out his birthday weekend and just see if we could see a Sasquatch. And boy, what we saw was something else, or what I saw rather was something else entirely.
Yeah, that it was, unfortunately. The dogman you saw looked like one of the most frightening werewolves in a horror movie, you said. Which movie, though, are you talking about?
It looked a lot like the creature from Bad Moon, the same color, similar body shape. The eyes were different. The eyes were like big red bicycle reflector beams, but it did favor the werewolf in Bad Moon quite a bit, nightmarishly so.
Wow, of all the werewolves to see that look like a movie werewolf, that's the worst movie werewolf to see, in my opinion. That's horrible.
Yeah, it has caused some nightmares since the encounter. It was definitely a wake-up call for me, going out into the woods by myself, deer hunting and everything. I deer hunt with a 30-06, but the thing I saw, I'm not confident even my 30-06 could take something like that down.
It's good you realize that. Now that we're on the subject, which werewolf movie do you think is the greatest one of all time?
Yeah, definitely Bad Moon. Definitely. I make my family watch it all the time. They probably hate it at this point, but I love it. Ever since I was a little girl, as soon as I watched that movie, I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. That's been my favorite of all time.
Wow, Deborah, I need to send you a shirt. You've got great taste in werewolf movies. I'm impressed.
Well,
I
thank
know.
you. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Did you know about Dogman before you had that encounter? And did the encounter wreck your love of the woods?
I had heard people talk about things like that, but in this area, it's so remote. It's a church going community, and anybody who's ever even made a report of seeing something like that, they're all labeled as being crazy or not right in the mind. So, I just chalked it up to figments of people's imagination, maybe. And it has kind of deterred me from going back to that spot. I have been fishing around that area, but I haven't went back to that area by myself without some kind of firearm. I haven't went back to that area exactly in the nighttime. Since then, I probably won't ever go back there again in the night.
Well, can't say I blame you for not going back. That's totally understandable. It hasn't been all that long since it happened. Again, it was May of last year, and you're still suffering from nightmares. You already mentioned that just a bit ago. What can you tell us about these nightmares, though?
Those red glowing eyes, just knowing that something like that is out there. All the times I've been out there by myself for hours on end, in the dark, um, creeping into the early morning hours, it's lurking in the back of my mind that that thing is out there. And my nightmares revolve around those red eyes glaring at me. I've had nightmares about those red eyes looking through my window. Now, I live in an upstairs duplex, um, so it's been crazy. Those red eyes haunt me.
Thank goodness it's an upstairs duplex, not a ground level one. Although big ones, I probably shouldn't say this, but big ones, they've looked through second story windows before.
That's terrible. Oh, that sends shivers down my spine.
Yeah, well, I was reluctant to tell you, but I figure forewarned is forearmed. So I thought it probably would be best if I let you know.
I want to
Unfortunately.
say I appreciate that, but it's pretty scary.
Oh, it is. Yeah, just imagine somebody sleeping up in their bed on the second floor and they've got the window open and there's a nose right there sniffing the window right through the screen. We had a guest on, Carrie, I think 2 weeks ago, and she came on and talked about that. But yeah, she's not the only eyewitness I've spoken with who went through that, unfortunately. Just not good. Not good at all. From what I understand, your son just might have seen the same dogman that you did. Have you told him about dogmen or kept that a secret from him?
He knows about Dogman. He has access to YouTube and stuff. He's seen a lot of the reports, and he's very intrigued about what we saw. He's 14. He just turned 14 this February, and yeah, he definitely saw something. It gave us a run for our money. It scared us to death.
Well, I'm sure it did. Yeah, 14 is a pretty darn delicate age. So, yeah, I think I'd treat that with kid gloves too, no pun intended, but I think I'd treat that with kid gloves also if it were me. So, that's a tough spot to be in. All right, Deborah, please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. So it was in May. My husband's birthday was May the 14th, and we had work that day. I worked 12-hour shifts. Um, so we had the weekend off, and we wanted to go cryptid hunting to see a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot. My husband, he's always wanted to see a Bigfoot. So we decided that weekend that we were going to go out, just me and him, and we had a spotlight and everything, and we go out down Gap Creek Road, and it's a very remote area. It goes from a paved road to a gravel road to a dirt road right on the banks of the Powell River. And once you hit the banks of the Powell River, you're on the dirt road. And there are no houses, no people, no nothing for miles. And once we hit the gravel part of the road, about the second bend in the road, getting close to the river, right before the dirt road, I got this bad feeling, and being brought up the way I was, I've been, like I said, I've been coon hunting a lot with my Walker dogs and blue tick hounds. I'm not afraid. I never was afraid of being out there at night. Been out there since I was a kid. So to be struck by an ominous feeling and such anxiety was something new to me. Um, it was my husband's birthday weekend, so I didn't say anything to him. I just chalked it up as my mind, just a bad feeling. We get around the second bend of the gravel road right before the dirt road starts. And that feeling, that ominous feeling was so strong, it almost made me want to throw up. And again, it was my husband's birthday weekend, so I didn't want to ruin the fun. I just stuffed it all down and didn't say anything. When we get around the second bend in the road, my headlight struck something, and he's looking out his side of the window. I'm looking out mine, and my headlights hit something. It looked like two big red bicycle reflectors looking at me. That's what caught my attention. And I'm looking, I'm squinting, trying to make out what it is that's giving those red glowing vibes. And I look and I can see what looks like this. It looked like the creature from Bad Moon hiding behind a tree in the foliage. It was almost hiding its face from me. Um, it actually did hide its face from me to the point to where I could only see half of one of its red glowing eyes. But the way that the moon was glistening that night, I don't know if it was a full moon or close to a full moon, but the moonlight was very bright, and I could see the foliage, the leaves, and this thing was hiding behind a tree, trying to hide its face from me behind the foliage, and I could see the silvery white hair on its body, but at the same time, it almost looked wet, like I could see its skin underneath its hair. Its hair was long, like a German Shepherd's hair, but I could see the skin underneath it, and this thing was muscular. Not like bodybuilder muscular, but close. Like you could tell it was built for speed and endurance. I could see the muscles of its neck, its upper shoulders, and its upper arm underneath the hair. And when I blink my eyes and I look back, it's completely gone. So, I kept this to myself. I didn't want to ruin my husband's trip. And we keep going on down till we get to the dirt road right at the riverbank, and we park. Now, right across the river from where we were, it's actually a creek that breaks where we were from a train trestle. You've got the main Powell River in front of us, the train trestle going across the river, and a creek that goes up. It's actually Gap Creek. And we parked the car, and my husband gets out with his spotlight. He's wanting to go see what he can see. And I still had this ominous bad feeling. It was real strong, real strong. I still felt kind of sick from it. And we get out of the car. I'm trying to humor him, show him a good time. And we start hearing at first what I thought was somebody coon hunting. And again, this was in May, so it wasn't the season for coon hunting. And I heard what sounded like a big old Walker dog or blue tick hound baying down hard on something. It was like, boo. And I was like, hey, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And he looks at me and he's like, what? And I was like, listen. And I busted out my phone. And I caught the tail end of it on my phone. And again, I hear a big, huge boo, like a hound dog baying down on the track. But the hound dog went from baying like boo to the crazy coyote sound like boo, like coyotes screaming. And then that's when I knew it was a huge coyote. And then I could hear the rest of the pack chiming in. And I had my phone recording it, and I was like, this is a huge coyote pack going crazy. I was far enough away from the coyotes to where me having my phone out, there's no way they could have seen the light from it. They immediately stop. So I cut my phone off and I wait in silence. And then I hear there's these big rocks on the train trestle. They're probably 10 or 20 pounds a piece, giant rocks. I start hearing those rocks whizzing all over the place, hitting the ground. And then the coyote pack goes crazy, like absolutely crazy, squealing and hollering like they're super excited or scared. I don't know what. I can hear their feet hitting the ground, running. I don't know if they were running after something or running from something, but it scared me enough to where I looked at him. I was like, I'm not doing this. I get in the car and open up the door. He's already far enough out in front of the car to where I can't get his attention anymore. And I load up my 45 and I just sit there. I close the door with my 45 loaded, ready to go. I crack the windows because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if they get close enough, I'm going to fire off a few warning shots and they'll run off. That didn't happen. He comes back. He says he didn't see anything. We call it a night. I'm like, I don't feel good. I got a bad feeling. I feel like we need to leave. And I start telling him, about how coyotes carry rabies and they're dangerous. My husband, he's from the city. He's not as familiar with things like that as I am. So we get back in the car and we go home. Well, a couple weeks, maybe a month later, me, him, and my son, who was 13 at the time, we go out spotlighting in the same area. The area where we parked is off to the right. And the area where we took my son, it's a fork in the road. It goes off to the right, way on down along the river, along the Powell River. So we take my son and we're going. My son's actually sitting out the back window of the SUV, propped up on it, spotlighting out into the field, the riverbank, the mountains, just to see what we can see. And my son said, he just screams out, "Stop, Mom, stop. I see something. I see something." And I was like, "What did you see? What did you see?" He's like, "Stop. Put it in, back it up, Mom, back it up." So there's this little turnaround spot right by the river. I back the SUV up in that turnaround spot and we turn around to where it's on my side of the window. Keep in mind, he's sitting on the back window, hanging out of the car. He shines the spotlight out and we see these yellow, huge, glowing eyes looking at us. And at first, the first thing in my mind was maybe this is a deer. Maybe it's a deer or something looking at us. But the longer I watched it, it was sentient. Like it was blinking. It was watching every move we made. I get the car. I put it in drive. We're creeping real slow. And it's following every move that we make. I pull my phone out. I snap a few pictures of it. And, we go on. Me and my son were gouging, elbowing each other, talking about how we saw something. And my husband, he was like, "Yeah, that's weird." So we go on home. About a week later, it was actually the following weekend, we come back to that area in the daylight. Okay. This thing that we saw, the eyes that we saw. Now, I was able to navigate to the exact spot where we saw it, and I used the turnaround point as my area of mapping. Like the picture I took on my phone, there was weeds and a tree and stuff I could see in the picture. This thing with those yellow, huge eyes was actually standing on the riverbank. About its feet would have had to have been 2 or 3 feet down. So that tells me it was at least 6 feet tall, whatever it was. So that totally eliminates a deer or any of the natural wildlife that we have around here. And that also brings me to my second point. A couple weeks after I saw the thing with the red eyes, went back out in the daylight. We actually went up, me and my son, to the point where I seen that thing, and we measured up in the tree, in the foliage where I seen them red eyes. That thing was about 9.5 feet tall. whatever it was. So it definitely shook me to my core, spending my entire life out in these woods hunting, deer hunting, fishing, nighttime, daytime. It scared me to death. And that's my tale.
Yeah, I can understand why it did frighten you to death. Yeah, it's hard to stomach something like that. Your husband was right there with you when you saw that dogman that night. Did you think about trying to draw that dogman to his attention, or did it all happen so fast that your mind was spinning?
Basically happened so fast my mind was spinning, and I really like the feeling I got from it. It made me sick to my stomach. Like it made me so anxious. I got sick, and I'm not a person that gets so anxious that they get sick. Like that never happens to me. So I just chalked it up as my mom playing tricks on me. Um, and I didn't want to ruin his birthday weekend. So I didn't tell him anything about it, because if he knew how I felt, and if he knew that I was about to get sick, he would have wanted to immediately go back home and see what was wrong with me. So I kept going. I tried to soldier through, but after hearing them coyotes and everything, I'm kind of glad we didn't stick around longer than we did.
No, I can understand that. Now, I know you didn't tell him that weekend because you're afraid of ruining his birthday weekend, but did you ever tell him?
Yes, I have since. It was actually just a couple days ago I told him. Um, and he was kind of in disbelief. Um, his point of mind was, well, you've been there so many times, and I've been there so many times. If something like that was out there, I would have seen it because I wanted to see it. And I'm thinking, well, I didn't want to see it and I saw it. So I can't explain to you why I saw it.
It seems like there are two type of people. You've got one crowd who just wants to know what's out there. Even if it freaks them out, they just want to know so they can take the appropriate action. Other people, they don't want to know. Even if it's out there, they think what you don't know can't hurt you. Which camp are you in?
Uh, I guess I would be in the camp of I would want to know so I could be prepared for it. But ever since I seen it, I would honestly place myself in the camp of I don't want to know. I would much rather not know and not have seen what I saw, because like I said, it definitely has deterred me from hunting and fishing in that area, and it's a really good spot, but I'm terrified to go back there.
Oh, no, I get it. I understand why. And there are definitely merits to both sides. If you don't know what's out there, hopefully you won't have any trouble with it. So sometimes ignorance is bliss. But on the other hand, there's that possibility. You never know. A dogman might have gotten up on the wrong side of the log and he might be looking for trouble on any given day. It's unlikely, but it happens. So there's merit to the other side too. But I was just wondering which side you stood on that. I'm wondering though, have there been times, Deborah, when your husband wanted to go back out looking for Sasquatch, but you refused to go?
Yes, definitely. He's actually asked multiple times since then. He's actually wanted to go back out and try to see the dog man and its eyes, and I have flat out refused to go. It scared me that bad. I don't want to go back out there.
No, I get it. I totally understand. Do you think though that someday down the road you might flip things and decide to go out there and try to spotlight dogmen just to try to get more comfort and I can't really say familiarity with these guys, but the more you know about what you fear, the easier it is to think about them, to be around them. Does that hold true with you, or are you totally hands off? You don't want anything to do with a dogman from now on out?
I really would not rather see that ever again. Honestly, the nightmares that I've had about the red eyes looking in my windows, I would rather never see it again, honestly.
Well, that's understandable. Everyone's different, so you never know what's going to be the best medicine for one person compared to the next. In your dreams, though, when those eyes look in your bedroom window, Is there ever any communication? Do they ever talk with you?
No, not yet. It's just been, uh, it's always led on by that bad feeling, that terrible anxiety and the nausea and that feeling of being mortified and helpless. And then I know that something's going to be at the window when I look out of it, but I do anyways, and I see those red eyes, and it's terrible. It's just terrible. Like I wake up and sweat. I've woke up screaming. It's not good.
No, that's not good at all. The part of your brain that controls your ability to rationalize things, to reason, that switches off when you're asleep. That's why when you wake up from a stupid nightmare or a crazy dream, you say, "What in the world was that all about? I was running from a giant banana," or something silly like that. Well, you can only do so much to control those and deal with those dreams outside of learning how to lucid dream, that is. But yeah, I mean, there's one thing. It's one thing if you're having a lot of trouble dealing with your encounters when you're asleep in the form of nightmares, but you're okay when you're awake. But when you're having trouble both ways, both when you're awake and when you're asleep, that's totally different. The fact that you're still heading back into the woods, you don't have a lot of comfort there going back into the woods. Obviously, not in the same place where you had that encounter, but you are going back into the woods. You told me, what, 2 days ago that you still deer hunt, and
Yeah.
that's obviously by yourself. So you're doing well. If you can do that, then you are dealing with this, which that's great. But do you ever see a time down the road where you can just go out into the woods and just not be compromised whatsoever?
Maybe someday in the future, um, maybe. I don't want to say never. I try not to say never, but maybe one day in the future. There was a time when I was deer hunting close to that area. It was actually this past deer season. I wasn't in that exact area. Like I said, I haven't went back there by myself, but I was close. And I go out into this open field, and I smelled what smell. I don't know how many of the viewers are um, competent with the smell of like a slaughterhouse, like fresh open deer entrails, or like a cow that's just been slaughtered, or a goat. But I was out in the field making my way to my blind, and it just hit me, the smell of fresh open entrails, like a deer had just been gutted right in front of me. And I'm looking all over the place. I can't see anything. There's no blood. There's nothing. Like, there's nothing that should have made that smell happen. And the wildlife, everything, the birds were chirping. And I got that feeling of anxiety again. And I took my gun, I put it on my shoulder, and I backed out. That was a bit much for me.
Oh, I'm sure it was. And not to freak you out, we don't know after all that it was a dog man that you were smelling, but understand that that's a commonly reported smell that eyewitnesses report smelling when they're in the presence of a dog man. So there's every possibility that you had one close to you, way too close for comfort, I'd say, if you could smell that.
Yeah, it was unsettling enough to where I backed out. I left my blind. Uh, there was a lot of supplies and ammo in my blind. I just left it. It's still sitting there to this day.
Well, I'm so glad you did that. Yeah, you definitely weren't in any position to have another encounter that soon after having the first one or the second one. Yeah, that's a really good move. I'm glad you did that. You told us that you started to feel bad not too long after you realized that the dogman was there, but how long did it take you for that nausea to go away? Was it not until you woke up the next day after a full sleep cycle, or later on in the evening? Well, I guess this all happened really early in the morning, but just a matter of hours later, did you start feeling better? How long did it take you?
It was about 4 hours after I had got home. I ate some saltine crackers. I actually had to take a couple shots of bourbon to calm myself down. And it gradually faded. It's about 4 hours. after it started, after I'd got home. So I guess from the time it started to the time I got home is about 6.5 hours.
Huh. Well, if that's the case, if you didn't have to sleep to make that nausea go away, then I don't think it was infrasound. I do believe these guys can emit infrasound. And if they do, that's definitely got the potential to cause nausea. But normally, a sleep cycle, from what I understand, is required to get you to start feeling better and recover from the nausea if you are hit with infrasound. So apparently it was something else that caused that nausea to come along. I don't know if it was just the fright or what, but something else apparently caused it. Just something to keep in mind.
Oh yeah, it was. I think I don't know. Um, I think it was like a sixth sense, just something telling me something's not right. Um, Beyond all points, to have my ears pricked up and my eyes open. It's just maybe it's where I've been raised in the woods hunting and tracking animals. It's something in my body just told me, hey, something's not right. This isn't good. Be leery. And I was, and I'm glad I was, but that's a feeling I will never forget, Vic.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. And I've said it 1,000 times before. I'm so glad you listen to your inner voice. It's always best to listen to your senses. If you get that feeling like it's time to get out of Dodge, please do. Don't ignore it. If you didn't tell your son what the eyes might have belonged to that night when they lit up those eyes with the spotlight, Deborah, did he brush off seeing those out there, or was he freaked out for some time after he saw those eyes in the spotlight?
He was definitely freaked out for some time. He actually started researching animal eye shine. Like I said earlier, we have a black bear population here, but their eyes are more like a reddish orange. Um, he started researching all different types of animals' eye shine, and he actually couldn't figure out what it was. Those yellow eyes, they like the pictures I sent you. You can see it's too big to be a deer. That's something that he's held on to quite tightly since then. It definitely shook him a little bit.
Well, like I said, I can understand why, especially being as young as he is. And with that in mind, I know you still do, but do you let him go back into the woods alone, or have you put a stop to that?
I will not let him or his sister go into that part of the woods alone, period. I don't let my husband go there alone, period. And I don't go back to that spot alone, period. I've been deer hunting. It was probably within 2 miles of that area. That's where I smelled that smell and got that bad feeling again. But yeah, I haven't let anybody in my family go back there alone.
Yeah, if you did, you'd be a nervous wreck. Poor thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll bet you would be. Yeah, that's understandable. You told him about Dogman later on, but to try and educate him on these guys, do you ever watch documentaries about them or shows or listen to podcasts?
Yes, unfortunately for my son, the first thing that he found was uh, the beast from land between the lakes. I think it's up in Kentucky. It's a little ways from us, and it freaked him out pretty good. The legends and the tales from that, and the family having all those issues, those people getting killed. That scared him pretty bad, and I think after that, he kind of just started to block it out. Um, I'm really lost as what to do for him on that since he found those things.
Hmm. Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have found those. That's way too much weight on a young back. Yeah, that's not the kind of thing you want a kid like that to find out about when he's just getting his feet wet in the whole dog man phenomenon. If you'd like for me to talk with him, If you'd like to have me call so the three of us could have a good conversation about all this sometime, then by all means, please let me know. I'd love to do that to try to help.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Maybe that would help him with what he's seen. Because, like I said, the things that he pulled up, they were pretty fear enticing.
Yeah, I can only imagine the things that have been going through his head. That's not good. And also, another thing you might want to caution him on, because he is 14 after all, he's got the ability to consume whatever he wants on YouTube and in podcast format. Caution him to be very careful about what info he believes about dogmen that he hears on any of these podcasts and any of these shows, because there's a lot of bad info floating around about these guys. And if he gets a hold of the wrong info, that could do a lot of harm instead of good.
Oh yeah, I've pretty much told him all the years I've spent out in the woods, deer hunting, coon hunting, fishing, that if something like that wanted to slaughter people and was just a mindless killer, that I would have been up there on the list. I probably wouldn't be here. As scary as it is, and as nauseous as it made me feel, um, I have told him, that there are things out there that we can't explain. To have an open mind, and there's new discoveries being made every day. He's got a very scientific mind. He's a very intuitive child, and I've told him, you know, not everything you see on the internet is true, and I think he knows that, but that was the first thing that he found when he looked up glowing eyes. So it was kind of disheartening, but I am glad as his mother that he has a respect and a fear of predators out there, because from black bears to coyotes to dogman, there are things out there that are bigger and badder than we are, and they need to be respected.
Oh, definitely they do. You don't have any mountain lions out there, do you?
Yes, we do. They are actually, there's a population of them behind us in the mountain. It's called Tackett Creek. It's a long mountain range. It's actually part of our backyard. It's the Appalachian Mountains, and there is a population of red wolves that were turned loose up there as a project by the TWRA, and mountain lions. They also had some bald eagle populations that are thriving now. We see them all the time down by the river. It's beautiful. There's so much wildlife down here.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like you collect the whole set. What don't you have running around there as far as predators go?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful place. And down by the river, it's really untouched by man. I hope it stays that way for generations to come.
Well, no wonder you have so many of them around. Is that area where you had that Dogman sighting, is it known for Sasquatch encounters?
There are people, generations before me, who have reported seeing what we call down here wood boogers. But like I said, the people who say that they've seen or heard wood boogers, people say that they're crazy, or that they're demons. Like I said, this is a big church going community. It's a small rural town, and things like that. They're really frowned on, and people who report seeing things like that, they're just looked down on, and it makes me sad seeing what I've seen, and knowing what I know now. It makes me sad for those people.
Oh, definitely. What really gets me is when a Dogman eyewitness reaches out to a Sasquatch researcher, and the Sasquatch researcher comes out to the area where they had their sighting, and the eyewitness explains everything about what happened. And at the end of the day, the Sasquatch researcher tries to convince them, "Well, no, it was a Sasquatch that you saw. There's no such thing as dogmen." It really gets me. There's some well known Sasquatch researchers who've done that. Eyewitnesses have told me about what they've done, and shame on them. That's not going to help anything. It really isn't. But what really gets me even more so than that are the people who have never seen a Sasquatch and they wholeheartedly believe in their existence, but they poo poo the existence of dogmen. That's even worse. And those people, they're not few and far between in the community.
Oh yeah. My husband, unfortunately, he may be one of them. He wholeheartedly believes in Sasquatch, but I really feel like he doesn't believe what I saw was true. I think he feels like, even though we've got pictures of those yellow eyes and videos of it, he just chalks it up to being something else. It's disheartening. It really is.
Yeah, that would be disheartening. Yeah, here's a man that you are married to and you love, and obviously that experience really shook you up. Well, when you finally told him about what happened to you, he rebuffs you. Shame on him. Has that caused any friction in your marriage?
Uh, it did a little bit at first, but we've been married for almost 16 years now, so it's just another hurdle that we crossed, and he knows that in his mind, I think he thinks that I saw something, but I think he just chalks it up to me imagining things, and it's messed up because I'm not the kind of person that sees things like that. I've been raised my whole life in the woods. I'm as country gets, and it's just a little bit messed up, but we moved past it.
Well, thank goodness you're able to do that. But did him not believing you, did that slow down your recovery about that dogman encounter?
Yes, definitely, it did. Absolutely.
No, that's no surprise. When you have a significant other who you can tell about your experience and you can bounce ideas off of them and they can try to support you and be understanding, that helps so much when it comes to coming to terms with your encounter. When you have a significant other who doesn't believe you, yeah, that is just such a blow to anyone's recovery. It's just a shame. It really is. You got a pretty good look at it. Did the dogman you saw that night seem to have any paranormal qualities, or did it just seem to be a flesh and blood creature out there trying to make a living?
Its red eyes definitely struck me as paranormal, but the musculature and the hair, the way it was hiding itself, that struck me as a 100% physical creature. Like it didn't want me to see it. Maybe it did, I don't know. But to me, it seemed like it was there and it didn't know I was going to be there, and I just happened to see it. And I really feel like maybe it was the actual creature.
Yeah, just might be. Although there really isn't any lack of credible eyewitnesses who've reported seeing these guys do things that point soundly towards them being paranormal, or at least having paranormal or supernatural abilities. So it really does make you wonder when you do what I do, though, it's only natural that you bounce back and forth from. At one moment, you're convinced they must be paranormal beings from the ether, and the next moment, you think, okay, yeah, they must just be flesh and blood. But it's really hard to say. They might be aliens for all we know. It's just really hard to say for sure, definitively, what they are. And that's pretty frustrating.
Absolutely. I still wonder to this day, are they tangible creatures that have always been there? And I really think that's the basis of my nightmares. Are they actual creatures and animals that have always been there? They've always been around. I've just never seen them by chance. And I just happened to see it that one time, two times. Or if it's something paranormal, which is super scary to me, and those red eyes, I mean, it's, ugh, thinking about it being paranormal, it just freaks me plumb out.
Yeah, if they're paranormal, then instead of being limited like the rest of us, not having any special abilities, who knows what the limits of their abilities are? So I can understand why that would freak you out. That doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies at all. We've talked a good amount, especially when we had the first conversation about your encounter in private there, Deborah, but I never did ask you. I know your husband hasn't, but have you ever seen a Sasquatch yourself?
I have not. I've been in the woods my entire life. I've been up on the mountaintops up behind my house up in Tackett Creek, like as mountainous as you can get. As a 6-year-old little girl with my daddy coon hunting with our walker dogs and blue tick hounds, I never seen nothing. I never heard nothing that made me think anything nonetheless other than just going coon hunting. My teenage years, I was out in the woods in the wilderness by myself, sometimes with friends, never heard or seen anything. And and then lo and behold, I'm 34 years old and I seen that thing. And then a couple of weeks later, I seen them Oz. So, it's, I try to keep an open mind, but it freaks me out really bad.
I get it. I understand. If you had never seen a Sasquatch before, when you saw the Dogman that night, you and your husband were spotlighting trying to see a Sasquatch. What got you into the whole Sasquatch thing?
We have actually been listening to different podcasts, yours included. We've been listening to your podcast for a couple of years, and we've seen the Bigfoot TV series and all that, and we figure we live in like the most remote of the remote areas of northeastern Tennessee. So we figured if there's any place where something like that's going to exist, it's definitely going to be down here. And hearing accounts from like my grandparents and the older people that live in the area about seeing wood boogers and whatnot, we figured we'd have a pretty good chance of seeing one. But now I'm starting to wonder if them wood boogers that people seen are dogmen and not Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And for everyone listening in the live chat, now's the time to type any questions you want me to ask Deborah in all caps. That way I don't miss them. But moving on, you told us that the Dogman was white, Deborah, but would you describe its coat as being dirty, filthy, or nice and clean?
It actually looked a little bit mottled, like it wasn't filthy, like it had mange or anything, but it looked like it had been wet, which made sense because it was right next to the river. Um, it was, I guess, for the area, it was pretty clean. I didn't see any dirt or any matted, mangy spots. It just looked wet.
Huh. There's no rhyme nor reason. Some of these guys, their coats look like they just left a beauty salon. Other ones look like they're rolling around in the mud. But yeah, like I said, there really is no rhyme nor reason. It's just hard to know. Did it have its mouth open or closed when you saw it?
When I saw its face, its mouth was actually slightly agape. I could see its teeth. It had a muzzle like a German Shepherd. It was long. Its teeth were huge. They weren't like glistening white. They were kind of yellow, like a German Shepherd's, I guess, like an older dog. But its canines were huge, and it actually, if I think about it, it looked like it had two canines on the top, like a large fang and a smaller one behind the large fang.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a sight that you're never going to forget there. I've got a question for you from Juan Aguilar, and he wants to know, have you taken any photos? Get that posted here. Any photos or video footage?
Yes, I have got photos and video footage of the yellow eyes, those giant yellow glowing eyes, that thing standing up from the riverbank. I've got video and photos. I've gave photos of it to Vic.
Yeah, I did see that photo. All you can see in the photo are those eyes glowing like headlights. And yeah, it makes you wonder if they're not emanating some light of their own. It really does. The next question up is from Jerry Cahill, and he wants to know, why do you think you felt fear and your husband didn't?
Now that I don't know. I think it just goes along with other people's sightings, maybe. I was in the mind frame of I really didn't want to see anything like that, and he wanted to see it so bad. And I just happened to see it. I guess I'm one of the unlucky ones.
Yeah, well, you might be unlucky in that way, but in other regards, maybe not. It's really hard to say. It is. The next question up for you is from Jerry Cahill. He wants to know, do you think the coyotes were running with or from the Dogman?
Thinking back about it, I honestly think they were running from the dog man. Um, I don't know if it was the dog man that I heard bay out like a coonhound. Whatever it was that I heard bay out, it was big, way bigger than a coyote. Just the sound of it and the depth, the bass of its howl or bay, whatever you want to call it, um, and the rocks getting flung all over the place, and then the whole coyote pack going crazy. I really think they were running from the dog man.
Yeah, they probably were. You're probably right about that. I've got another question for you from Robert Wolf. He wants to know, can we see the photos? Well, you can if Debra says it's okay for me to post that photo on my personal Facebook page. As long as it's okay with her, then I'll do that. But Debra, there's no pressure for me to do that.
Absolutely, Vic. I'm willing to share it with the world.
Okay, well, I'll do that then. I will post it on my personal Facebook page, and people ask me all the time, how are we going to know when we find the right Vic Cundiff on Facebook? You'll know, you'll definitely know when you find the right Vic Cundiff profile. And that is VICCU in like Nancy, D like David, IFF as in Frank. It's really easy to find. Moving on, the next question is from Trippin' New Panu, and they want to know, did the coyote stop howling when the dogman howled?
Actually, when I heard the big thing bay out, the coyote pack went rampant. They started squealing and screaming and making all kinds of a mess of holler you wouldn't believe. They got super loud. They only went quiet when I heard the rocks flinging. And keep in mind, these were not just like gravel rocks, these were like 10, 12-pound stones. I could hear them plunging all over the place. They stopped making noise then, but it wasn't but a few moments later I could hear them squalling and hollering. I could hear and feel their feet digging up the dirt, running. It sounded like they were running from the rocks getting tousled.
Yeah, they just might have been. You never know. The next one up is from Candace Wetzel, and Candace wants to know, are you concerned the dogman has marked you for tracking? That's a good question.
Ooh, that's a creepy one. I hope not. As somebody who spends a lot of time in the woods alone, fishing and hunting, I really hope not. But from my time talking with Vic and just from what I've experienced, I really think if I am marked, I don't think that I'm going to get hurt. Maybe they're just curious and wanting to watch me, because if I was going to be hurt, there's been a bajillion opportunities plus a bajillion that I could have been 100% disappeared from planet Earth. Nobody would know what happened to me. Um, so if I was going to be hurt by one of them things, it would have done happened years ago.
It's good you understand that. I talk with people all the time who just get it wrong. It's not their fault. They just don't know. They don't understand dogmen. And also, too, they're traumatized from their experiences, so they can't see things clearly. But people who they step outside and they see a dogman in their backyard 20 years ago, and they can't eat right, they can't sleep right, and you talk with them to find out what's ailing them, and they tell you how these dangerous dogmen are outside. And ever since that sighting, I've done things to quote unquote protect myself. Oh, really? So you've been protecting yourself from these dangerous monsters. What have you done? And then they go on to tell you how they don't go deep into the woods unless it's a bright, sunny afternoon and all these other things. I never go outside after dark, and they do all these other things that don't add up to a hill of beans. I can understand them trying to do these things for just comfort, but at their core, they really don't protect them in any way from a dogman that's got it in its mind that it wants to take them out. They wouldn't be any safer in their basements at 3 p.m. in the afternoon than they would be at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night with the blindfold on, way out in the woods behind their homes. If the dogmen in the area around their homes, if those dogmen want to get them, they can come through any wall of their house and get them if they wanted to. But the great news is that hasn't happened because they don't want to do that. Plain and simple. Moving on, the next question is from Beatrice Ward. And Beatrice wants to know, can we hear the recorded sound of what she heard? Would you be okay with me posting that on my Facebook page also? And understand, I can't stress it enough there, Deborah. There's no pressure to do that. It's totally up to you.
Absolutely. I will make sure you get that video footage. Like I said, it was at the tail end of the coyote pack. And once them rocks started slinging, they all just got like super quiet. But yeah, absolutely. And kind of going into the last question, um, I'm familiar with firearms. Like I said, I've been brought up in the South. You know, I'm a huntress. I've spent my life hunting, fishing, and I know in the pit of my heart what I seen. If it did want to get me, and I don't think that it does, based on what I've experienced so far. I always carry a 45 Springfield with me, and when I'm deer hunting, I carry a 30-06, and those weapons would be no match for what I saw. Like point blank and simple. A 30-06, that's a high powered rifle. At a drop of moose and a heartbeat, it wouldn't be a match for it. So, you know, I'm just gonna take my gut feeling on that. If I was gonna be harmed, I would have been harmed. But yeah, I will definitely send you that recording, Vic.
Okay. If that's the case, I'll take that recording, and by early afternoon tomorrow at the latest, I'll have the photo and that recording posted on my personal Facebook page. I've never posted a recording before that's just in the form of an MP3 or something like that, but I'll try to make sure I get that all taken care of at the latest by early afternoon tomorrow and get both of those posted. Again, VICCUN like Nancy, D like David, IFF as in Frank, Cundiff on Facebook. And again, you won't have any trouble telling which one is the right Vic Cundiff account. Here's a good question for you from Jerry Cahill. And Jerry wants to know, do people go missing around there very often?
Yes, actually, yes. In the past, we've blamed it on the numerous cave systems in the area. In this portion of northeastern Tennessee, we have a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of cave systems. A lot of them are undiscovered or untraveled, undocumented. I hear it every day on Facebook, Instagram. People go coon hunting and their dogs just suddenly drop from the ground where a cave system opens up. I wonder if these things use the cave system. There are so many caves in the area. It's crazy.
They probably do use them. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, that whole area has got so many resources that lend themselves to making it a Holiday Inn for these guys. It's no wonder so many people see Dogman and Sasquatch in that area. It really isn't a surprise at all. I've got another good question for you from Jerry. Jerry wants to know, how close did the rocks get to you? Do you think it was trying to hit you or just scare you off?
I don't think the rocks were trying to hit me or scare me off. It sounded like they were being tousled at the coyote pack from my perspective. Um, they were very big rocks. I'm I'm not a small woman. I'm 6 foot tall, almost 200 pounds, and to whiz those stones at the velocity that I heard them flying around, it would have taken everything in me just to do one or two, and I heard like 6 or 7 of them. So I don't think it was towards me. I think it was whizzing stones at the coyotes.
You're probably right. That's probably what was going on. This next question is from Michigan Meat Eater, and he wants to know, have any neighbors seen or heard anything near you?
Yes, there are some old timers in this little farming community who have made reports of seeing white wood boogers. Um, like I said previously, I think the reports may have been dogmen and not Bigfoot, but when there's a report made of a wood booger, everybody always thinks Bigfoot. I really think they were reporting a dogman.
Yeah, they just might have been. You never know. There's every possibility that's the case. This next one is from Stephen Truthseeker, and Stephen wants to know, has the dogman followed the lady home on the astro realm? Which I think
Oh
he's
goodness.
asking about. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I'm so sorry. I really hope not. I really, really hope not. If that's the case, that would explain my nightmares. So I really hope my nightmares are just because of my subconscious, but I hope that thing ain't followed me home.
Did you and your husband go straight home after you spotlighted that night or go someplace else?
We came straight home,
How far was that spot from your home?
maybe 3 miles.
3 miles. Okay. Well, it might have followed you home. It might not have, but if it did follow you home, it's had every opportunity since May. Think about that. May 19th. It's had every opportunity to harm you. You've been mowing, you've been doing things outside. Not that you're any safer outside your home than you are inside your home from one of these things. It goes back to the point. It's had every opportunity to harm you. It's good you understand that even though it's had all these opportunities, there's one reason and one reason only why it hasn't harmed you, because it doesn't want to. So please never lose sight of that fact. I've got another one for you from JS Skillet. I'm sorry, J Skillet 89. They want to know, do you think a 50 caliber Beowulf would stop one?
50 caliber, maybe, like, just coming from my past experience, like I said, I'm an avid huntress. I've took down some big game animals in my day. Maybe if you shot one right in the eye, maybe. But the way that this thing was built, the one with the red eyes that I could clearly see, you would have to be a quick shot and a good one because it was made, its musculature and its physique, like it was made to eat speed. You would have to be one heck of a good shot.
It's good to not lose sight of that fact. So many people strap a gun on when they know that a dogman's in an area and they consider it good. Okay, I've got a gun, so I'm safe. When number one, they have no clue how they're going to respond under pressure, the kind of pressure when a dogman's right there and you can see it and you're not sure what it's got in mind. And number two, do they even have the ability to be accurate with whatever they're carrying? There's so many variables. It goes so much above and beyond just strapping a gun to your hip or carrying one in your hands. as far as protecting yourself. There's so much more that goes into it than so many people consider. There really is. I'm going to ask you one more question, and this question is from Patrick from the NADP. He wants to know if you ever heard of the Dwyo being mentioned there in the area.
No, that's completely new to me. I would like to know what that is and what it's about.
Well, the Dwyo, that's normally what dogmen are called in South America, but in certain areas of Central America also. But apparently, maybe they're called that in Tennessee and some other places in the United States, I guess. If that's the case, that's news to me. I didn't know that. But people in different areas, I mean, there are so many nicknames for these cryptids. Sasquatch, a lot of people don't know that a lot of people in the South call them haints, call them no-heads, catamounts, all these other nicknames. Dogmen, they've got their nicknames too that a lot of people in various regions don't know about. So it's really hard to say what they're called in any given area, I guess. But having said all that, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of these experiences with us, Debra. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I really thank everybody for their questions.
Yeah, they really did have some good questions tonight. They really did. But please remember, if you ever do need more help, I'll always be there for you. All you have to do is just let me know, and I'll be there for you.
Thank you so much, Vic. I appreciate it more than you know.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, thanks again for your time there, Debra, and have a great night.
You too, Vic. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll see ya. Well, that's another one in the books. Before I get out of here, if you've had a dogman encounter of your own that you need help with, or maybe you want to just be a guest on the show, all you have to do is to go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you do that, then I'd be more than happy to contact you and schedule a phone consultation with you so we can just take it from there. But having said that, thanks again so much, everyone, for listening, for supporting these eyewitnesses and all you do. I really appreciate it, and have a great night.